Today on Arts 24, a captivating look at an accessory that has long eluded me. From beanies to berets, nothing seems to suit me. So can the master of millinery help me find my hatitude? Let's go find out.
Everybody has a head for hats. I mean, if you look at photographs of the 1930s or 40s, everybody's wearing a hat. You just have to find the hat which is right for you. But hats are completely transformative.
A Franglish fashion icon, Stephen Jones has been creating chapeaux for more than 4 decades, on both sides of the English Channel. From Dior to Jean-Paul Gaultier, he has made the hat more than just an accessory, but wearable art.
I visited my friends in Nice and I was talking about salad niçoise and they said, well, you know, everybody makes their own version of the salad niçoise. There's not one recipe. And I said, well, maybe I should make my own version like a hat. So I made this one out of straw. So you can see the crown is made like tuna and it's got green beans on it. It's even got a hat pin like an anchovy. I love this. It's maybe one of my favorite hats. This is a party mask, inspired by Jacques Cousteau.
That's good. You can wear it, you know, on the beach, in the sea.
I'm not sure it's completely functional.
For health and safety reasons, we do not recommend.
No.
170 Stephen Jones creations on show, including the headpiece worn by Lady Gaga at the Paris Olympics opening ceremony. It's the first accessories exhibition of its kind at the Palais Galliera in over 40 years.
Well, this is the star piece, really, of the exhibition. This is created in 1937. This is the shoe hat by Elsa Schiaparelli, but in fact, it was created by Salvador Dali for her. And there's only 3 in the world. It's a sense of humor. It's the party on your head, the fête sur la tête. It's a top hat like a cotton reel. And you know, sometimes the simplest stories are just the best one, and everybody loves this. Stephen Jones millinery, handmade by virgins.
I didn't see that bit actually before. We're at a very monumental exhibition of your work, of your life, you could say. Now, I understand that a similar exhibition in 1975 at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London had a big impact on you and your desire to work in fashion. Is that right?
Yeah, it was an exhibition called Fashion 1900 to 1939. I came to visit this incredible exhibition, and in it, I saw this jacket, which was by Charles James, which was padded. It looked like the Guggenheim Museum in New York or something. I didn't realize it was at that point, from 1937. And I thought, wow, maybe I could get into fashion.
So maybe a future Stephen Jones, will be going around his exhibition and finding inspiration as well.
Well, I hope so. You know, why do I do this? I do it for people to see. And if there's a teenager or a young person, they can see, wow, do people look at things like that on their head? Do they wear things like that?
Now, his collection really takes us from your early years, your childhood, just outside of Liverpool, all the way to Paris. What was the first hat, then, that you ever made?
It was made from a cereal box with the back of my sister's blouse stuck onto it, and on the side of it, it had a plastic sort of orchid, and I can't remember what sort of flower it was, which I'd sprayed with car paint, and that was really my first hat.
Oh, wow, so recycling really pays off, you could say. You're an early pioneer of recycling.
Very advanced at the time. But they thought it was all very punk, because they came from the world of perfectly made hats and silk and beautiful flowers and furs and all that. And this was just this thing stuck together, and they thought it was very reflective of the times.
Late 70s, early 80s Britain, a time of economic austerity and Thatcherism. But also the birth of punk and the New Romantics musical movement. Stephen Jones was at the heart of it all, rubbing shoulders with the likes of Spandau Ballet, Kim Bowen and Boy George at London's iconic Blitz Club.
It was really a time of cultural change. You know, punk had come out of sort of dissatisfaction with the status quo, but what we were looking for, which was something, and that's why it was called new and romantic, we started to look back at history in the way that people hadn't done for quite a long time. We were led by music, but also at that time, suddenly fashion and appearance became important as well.
And how did that impact your aesthetic? What did you take from the New Romantics era and put into your designs?
First of all, it was hats, full stop, because I knew that a hat was such a huge signifier of time and place. So, yes, you could use a vintage velvet and do something which looked poetic and as though it had been from the film of Casanova by Fellini. Or you could take a second-hand felt hat from Oxfam and turn it into something which looked like Paris in the 1940s.
Now, from music royalty to actual royalty, you designed a hat for Princess Diana. What was it like designing for her?
It was a very extraordinary moment for me because I was making hats for Boy George and Steve Strange and Culture Club and Duran Duran and all those people. And then I had a phone call from the Palais and I started to work with her. And, you know, I was making hats for her. So in a strange way, I had the new world of hats, but I had the old world of hats, which was the royal family and Royal Ascot, and both of those things running in parallel.
A royal seal of approval, and the launch of a 45-year career, from his first shop in London to collaborating with designers like Vivienne Westwood on her Harris tweed collection.
She'd been punk beforehand, and she was very interested in looking at traditional British things. So she visited Harris in the Hebrides, the Outer Hebrides, and she decided to make all these clothes, which were a little bit royal and inspired by the Queen of when she was a little girl. And we came up with the idea. She said, I'd love to put a crown on. I said, well, maybe you could make it soft. And we developed this idea together.
The next chapter of his life would take him across the Channel to the fashion capital of the world, Paris, a city that had intrigued him since childhood.
I'd come to Paris as a teenager. I came here sort of on a bit of an exchange program that my parents had organised with some of their friends. But what I really remember was the metro in those days, because it was the old-fashioned metro. They were made from wood, and they had some Louis panels on them, and there was first class and second class, and you could smoke.
Wow,
it's such a different world.
And one part of the exhibition is called La Parisienne. How would you describe this Parisian style?
Well, for every foreigner around the world coming to Paris, they have an idea of the myth of Paris, maybe not the reality. La Parisienne is a woman, probably not a girl, who's chic and elegant and opinionated and is probably wearing black, and she has extraordinary style, grace, glamour, and she really knows about the feminine arts.
Stephen Jones has put out 2 collections a year for the last 40 years. His 2017-18 autumn-winter collection, titled Haute Couture and Prêt-à-Porter, paid homage to some of the biggest names in the history of Parisian couture, from Gabrielle Chanel to Elsa Schiaparelli. He has himself forged strong connections with France-based designers over the years, like Jean-Paul Gaultier, even modelling in one of his shows.
J'aimais bien montrer les gens qui représentaient quelque chose pour moi et qui représentaient aussi bien visuellement, physiquement que moralement et créativement. Donc c'était une espèce à la fois d'hommage et puis...
And British designer John Galliano, on his own collections as well as during his tenure at Dior, Givenchy and Maison Margiela.
What's extraordinary about John is that really he creates a woman, or creates a girl, and we're describing her character of what she might have done. You know, maybe she's a Chinese princess who took the train to Baghdad, and there she met this incredibly handsome guy, and then they eloped to Latin America and went to a cocktail party, and that's your brief. But I remember once asking John, why are you so interested in hats? And he said to me, well, that's a very funny question coming from you. He said, but why would I not be? because it's above the neckline that thing becomes really interesting. It's at the cuff on the hand where things become really interesting. It's not that he designed all the extremities first and then filled in, but certainly they were all thought of in parallel.
And another fashion house that you've had, probably your longest collaboration, is with Dior. I think it's around 28 years of
heading towards
collaboration.
30.
And they also seem to place a lot of importance on hats, and it seems to be really part of their DNA. Why do you think that's the case?
Interestingly enough, Monsieur Dior actually designed hats really before he designed clothes. So hats were extremely important at the very beginning of the Dior house. The biggest accessory, the most important accessory for them financially as well, were hats, not shoes, not handbags or anything like that. But of course, everybody was wearing a hat. But he never saw hats as being separate to the rest of the outfit, a bit like Maria Grazia today. You know, he just thought it was a continuation of the same thing.
History is cyclical. Where do you see the future of hats?
Where are hats going? Well, more hats for a start. But I think, obviously, hats which are decorative and in a way mean nothing can mean everything, because sometimes their function is to be the fantasy in your life, because everything else is about paying your bill or looking after your children. That a hat can be that party on your head. At the same time, in a technical way, and it's so funny when people say to me, oh, people don't wear hats anymore, but they do. They wear a jersey beanie on the metro on a Monday morning to work. They wear a little beret or something like that to go out. They wear, if they're in the Côte d'Azur, they'll wear a sun hat to keep the sun off their face. So hats are worn, but they have to follow the times that they're in. That's the most important thing, and then they make sense.
Well, Stephen Jones, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.